again, everyone, and welcome to the first day of the new Logitech C615 HD video cam. Hopefully the picture's a little better, hopefully the sound's a little better. Now today we are reviewing the Nica Rustica, the newest cigar from Drew Estates. It comes in just this one size, and it's a Toro 6x52. It's meant to be rustic, thus the name Rustica. The pigtail is a little rough. The foot is unfinished, as you can see. Now this cigar is comprised of a Connecticut broadleaf wrapper, a Mexican San Andreas Negro binder, and Nicaraguan filler. Suggested retail price is around $7. I do believe I paid a little more for this one at the local shop, and they were released in August. So let's get right to it. The Nica Rustica by Drew Estates. All right, let's take a quick look at that band again. There we go, Nica Rustica. All right, let's clip off just a little bit of this pigtail. Very good draw. There's what we took off. A lot of times with those unfinished feet, you'll get splattering of pieces, so be careful with that when lighting it. Here initially there is an earthy cedar with some sweetness, with a slight little bitterness of what you could call, I suppose, like a grapefruit type citrus. The pepper, surprisingly, is not that high. I would only put it at about between a 6 and a 7 at this point. That's sort of your initial flavors. So what I want to do is let it settle down a bit and possibly come into its own. So there is a nice little sweetness there. You can tell it's cedar. It's actually has some cream aspects to it mixed in there, and a little grapefruit citrus type bitterness. Let's see where we go from here. Well, I guess I'm an inch and a half in, and the flavors are really about like they were at this point. We're still well in the first third. There is a sweetness of cedar. There is some earthiness. There's sort of a background leathery flavor, and I'm also getting notes of cocoa now. The cigar is really no more than medium bodied at this point. The finish is a sort of a tapioca type flavor, almost a French vanilla, if you will. There is some lingering pepper on the finish. You do still have that little bit of bitterness, like it's akin to a grapefruit type citrus. Again, I think I'm most surprised at the pepper. I thought it would be much more intense, but it is about, like we said before, between a 6 and a 7. And I would call it a, it is a black pepper, but it's not very intense like I thought it would be. There is a nice sweetness though on the cedar and grapefruit. There are some cream notes. It's a very very sweetness. Definitely not syrupy, but the cocoa adds a little of that sweetness too. So at about an inch and a half in, that's where we are. Well, we were just past the midpoint. The sweetness is definitely elevated. There is a brown sugar type sweetness with the cigar. The cocoa notes are still very much in play. Um, doesn't seem like the leather is quite as pronounced. The earthiness is not quite as pronounced. There are even flashes if you'll take very slow draws, a little distance between them, a black cherry type sweetness. There's some nice sweet flavors in this cigar. Um, it's still what I'd call medium bodied. That is a little surprising to me. The pepper may have ticked up to about a 7. The sweet flavors have intensified, and that started around the midpoint. I'm just past the midpoint. As you can see, the cigar is burning very evenly, so that's not a problem. But it's definitely the sweet flavors have picked up. The finish is still about like we spoke of before. There's a little toastiness to the French vanilla type cream, and a touch more lingering pepper. So things have picked up from the beginning. It's a little more now of everything. Some of the bitterness, grapefruit bitterness and what have you, has decreased, and it allowed the nice cedar notes to come through, sweet cedar and the sweet cocoa, and what have you. So it's in my opinion, the cigar has improved from this point. I don't know what'll happen. Let's wait and see. Well, we're definitely here in the final third. The bitterness is gone. The sweetness is still quite elevated. I'm getting sweet cedar with brown sugar, earthiness, very light leather, very light, and some charred oak notes. The cocoa notes are sort of subtle at this point, but they're still detectable at the very base. I would say they outshine the other lower level flavors of earthiness and leather. That they are very, very light at this point. The finish is about like we spoke of before. The cigar is still medium. I would call it now possibly medium to full bodied at this point. I would call it medium to full bodied. And I do not see it going any higher. But there is a definite thick sweetness. I would still just say it's pretty much a brown sugar cocoa sweetness with that cedar. So it's a good cigar. It's just it's made a major transition from where it started. To be honest with you, that bitterness at the front end did not really play very well with the cigar. Now it's gone away and it's very nice. So expect that through the first third, and then it'll dissipate and finally go away altogether. Well, we're down to the end, so let's wrap it up. Here at the end, you have 4 main flavors that are a nice mix right now. You have your cedar, cocoa, charred oak, and brown sugar. All 4 of those are what you're getting. It's what you really taste. The earthiness went away, the leathery type notes went away, the bitterness went away. From about the midpoint on, the cigar got very tasty and very good actually. It's medium to full bodied. It took about an hour and a half to get to this point. The finish is some of those charred oak notes have filtered over to the finish. They are combining with a sweet cream with some toastiness. So there's a little charred oak on a toasty cream, and it has some sweetness to it and a little lingering pepper. The pepper elevated out at about a 7, and that's about it. The cigar, like I said, definitely is medium to full bodied, and it ended up very well. It started out one way and ended another, and that's getting the other being much better. It finished much better than it started. The cigar takes a while to settle down and get to those nice sweet flavors, and when that gets there, it's very good. It's really a very appropriate name, rustic. It has a lot of rustic flavors. It has a lot of just a rustic feel to it. but it does level out to be a very good cigar. All in all, even with the negatives on the front end, it's a very good cigar. I'm rating it a 92. It possibly could have been much higher, in my opinion, if it didn't have that bitterness on the front end. And the bitterness I attributed to like a grapefruit type citrus. Be that as it may, those went away. So there you have it, the Drew Estates Nica Rustica 92.